Deutsche Bank just said Bitcoin will be joining gold in central bank reserves by 2030. But here's what they're not telling you. We're about to witness the biggest supply shock in Bitcoin history. Most people have no idea what's coming. What's up, everyone? It's your boy Shub. All right, guys, I'm not here to give you financial advice, but I think Bitcoin, everyone's fearing right now. The fear and greed chart is all the way to the fear side. Everyone thinks Bitcoin's dying. The bear market's about to start, but I'm telling you, I don't think that's the case. Let's get into the data. We start with a number that'll wake you up. There's only about 1 million Bitcoin left to be mined. Out of the 21 million, so only 1 out of 21 million are left to be mined. ETFs are eating it up every single day. Companies like Strategy or MicroStrategy in the past are eating it up. MetaPlanet, all these companies are eating it up. I think there's around 450 Bitcoins being mined per day, but there's way more demand for it every day. Known demand for it that we can track. That's excluding obviously the retail, which hasn't really been in play this cycle, it seems like, at least not yet. So the math is just not mathing. I mean, the math's not mathing. There's ETFs literally buying more Bitcoin that are being mined every day, and the price is still down. All right, so here's a tweet from Altcoin Gordon. Shout out. He says, when Bitcoin inevitably catches up with the M2 money supply, we're going to see a pump like no other. All right. So let's zoom into the chart here. See, Bitcoin in the past, and this doesn't go out very much, but if you go out back, you can see that Bitcoin always tracks M2 global liquidity because all the money supply essentially goes into Bitcoin. Bitcoin is truly the market asset, right? The most liquid asset. It can be sold anytime, 24/7 market. So you see that it's kind of lagging M2 money supply here. And if you make it catch up to the money supply, it actually hits 209,000. Now let's see if that actually happens and if it gets there. But if it's bumpy from here, that's possible. But I think we all know where Bitcoin's going. All right, so here's a little screenshot of the national debt clock of the US. It's about $37 trillion. We're paying about $1 trillion of interest per year. I don't think we're ever paying that back. So the only way to kind of that back and not default on it, which the U.S. won't, because imagine you have a mortgage and you have to pay your debt, right? Every month you have your mortgage to pay. But imagine you don't have the money to pay that. What would happen? People are going to take your house, but the U.S. government doesn't have that. The U.S. actually has a second option they can take. They have a printer of money in the basement. So they go to the printer and they print the money and they pay their mortgage, essentially. But they pay that money, every time they print the money and pay the mortgage, it devalues the currency for everyone else, right? Everyone else in the economy devalues it. So they pay it back, but in purchasing power terms, that money just doesn't buy you the same stuff. So this is why I'm saying Bitcoin's always going to be in a bull market because we're always in a dollar bear market, if that makes sense. So Bitcoin, it's not really going up. Bitcoin is just Bitcoin. 1 Bitcoin equals 1 Bitcoin. But Bitcoin represents fiat debasement. So yesterday, Dennis Porter, if you're on Bitcoin Twitter, you know who he is. He's always tweeting out stuff that's kind of bullish. Tends to be a little bit of a nothing burger. But yesterday, he announced that, okay, the massive political news coming through on Tuesday. And it's going to shape the trajectory of Bitcoin politics. What came out today was that one of the governors for California is a Bitcoiner, and he's going to propose actually holding Bitcoin in California's reserves, which is actually good news, but it's not as hyped up as Dennis Porter made it be. So I think everyone was expecting him to tweet something about or announce something about Trump and the U.S. Bitcoin reserve, but it's a little bit step down below that. But I think the Bitcoin reserve, the U.S. Bitcoin reserve, is still a little bit further away than we think. Although I think it is going to happen in the next, let's say, 4 years. Here's a tweet from Cynthia Lummis, right, from a little while back, I think a year ago, where we are going to build a Bitcoin reserve, America. And she's a senator of Wyoming, I believe, and she's really good. So here are the Bitcoin ETF inflows. You can see over the last 4 weeks, it's just been all greens, no outflows. So the price being down right now, it is kind of confusing. People are selling, I guess, but I think we're going higher. Look, we have Bitcoin in central bank reserves by 2030, according to Deutsche Bank. We have this M2 money supply that's kind of increasing We have strategic Bitcoin reserves, and we have these ETF flows in. Bitcoin just keeps getting harder and harder, just like me. Look, I'm not saying Bitcoin's going to the moon tomorrow. All I'm saying is there's a lot of bearish people out there today, this week, this last couple months, just because Bitcoin's been flat. But guys, just look at the data, get the reassurance from the data, and just hodl on. That's all I got today. See you guys later.